The Korthak invasion fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, like a swarm of metal insects. 50,000 warships spread across space in perfect military formation. Their weapons were charged, and their targeting systems were locked onto human colonies and defense platforms. War Marshal Gorthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Iron Conquest. Around him, his officers prepared for what they expected to be the shortest war in galactic history. Intelligence reports said that Earth's entire defense fleet was pathetically small. Fewer than 200 converted merchant vessels with basic weapons. "Begin the bombardment," Gorthon commanded. "Target all major population centers and military installations. I want this finished within the hour." But as the Korthak fleet moved toward the inner planet, something appeared on their sensors that shouldn't have existed. 12 massive contacts were approaching from the outer system, moving at speeds that exceeded anything in their databases. "Sir, we're detecting unknown vessels," reported the tactical officer. His voice was uncertain. "They're huge, but our computers can't identify their configuration. They don't match any known ship design." Gorthon studied the sensor displays with growing confusion. The approaching ships were enormous. Each one was larger than his flagship, and they were moving through space in ways that violated basic physics. They seemed to phase in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Probably some kind of sensor malfunction, he decided. Human technology is too primitive to threaten us. Continue the attack. That was when Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo opened a communication channel to the entire Korthak fleet. His voice carried across space with the authority of someone who commanded weapons that could break planets. "Korthak fleet, this is Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo of the First Human Empire. You are trespassing in sovereign human territory. You have 30 seconds to reverse course and withdraw or face the consequences." The communication caused laughter throughout the Korthak fleet. A human claiming to command an empire, using titles that implied authority over vast territories? It was ridiculous. Gorthon himself was amused by the audacity. "Human vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your entire species is about to learn the price of defying the Korthak Empire." Hyunwoo's response was calm and final. "You have made your choice. Admiral Shin, demonstrate why we were once called the Star Shepherds." What happened next changed galactic history forever. The 12 ancient human warships dropped their stealth systems and revealed themselves in full. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering that made current galactic technology look like children's toys. The Eternal Phoenix led the formation, its hull seeming to absorb light while energy patterns danced along its surface. Gorthon stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. The human ships were massive beyond comprehension, and they were generating energy readings that exceeded the total output of his entire fleet. But that was impossible. Humans were primitive, barely capable of basic space travel. "All ships open fire," he commanded. "Destroy those vessels." 50,000 Korthak ships unleashed their weapons at the same time. The volume of firepower was staggering. Enough energy to sterilize multiple worlds. Plasma cannons, particle A, beams and antimatter torpedoes converged on the human fleet in a display of destruction that lit up space like a new sun. The energy assault should have vaporized anything in its path. Instead, the human ships didn't even activate defensive shields. The weapons simply passed through them harmlessly, as if the vessels existed in a slightly different dimension. "Phase technology," Admiral Shin explained to the shocked humans on the bridge. "We exist partially outside normal space-time. Their weapons cannot touch us while we maintain phase variance." But the human response was devastating in its precision. The Eternal Phoenix fired a single energy pulse at the nearest Korthak battle group. The beam didn't just destroy the target ships. It folded space around them, crushing 50 vessels into a ball of compressed matter the size of a basketball. Across the Korthak fleet, panic began to spread. Their most powerful weapons were useless. While the humans were destroying entire squadrons with casual ease, ships that had seemed invincible moments before were being eliminated faster than their sensors could track. The human fleet moved through space like dancers, never staying in one location long enough for the Korthak targeting systems to lock on. They appeared and disappeared, striking with surgical precision before phasing back into their protected dimensional state. Within 4 minutes, Half the Korthak invasion fleet was gone, not damaged or disabled, completely destroyed, with no survivors and no debris larger than dust particles. The ancient human weapons operated on principles that current galactic science couldn't understand, turning matter into energy and space itself into a weapon. Gorthon watched his fleet die around him with growing horror. This wasn't warfare as he understood it. This was extermination by beings so advanced that his entire military force was meaningless. The humans weren't just defeating them, they were demonstrating that the Korthak Empire had never been a real threat at all. His flagship shook as sister ships exploded around it. Emergency systems screamed warnings about impossible energy readings and spatial distortions that shouldn't exist. His tactical officer was shouting reports about human vessels that could manipulate gravity itself, folding enemy ships like paper. "Surrender," came a new voice over the communications system. It was Communications Officer Yuna, now serving as diplomatic liaison aboard the Eternal Phoenix. Her voice was calm and professional, as if she was discussing trade agreements rather than the destruction of a galactic superpower. "I am authorized to inform you that this engagement represents approximately 0.3% of current human military capability. The First Human Empire once maintained fleets of over 100,000 vessels of this class, supported by weapon systems capable of extinguishing stars and moving planets. The surviving Korthak ships stopped firing. Their crews were too stunned to continue fighting. Around them floated the debris of what had been the most powerful invasion fleet in galactic history, destroyed in less time than it took to eat a meal." Yuna continued, her words carrying across space to every surviving alien vessel. "War Marshal Gorthon, your empire has two options. You can order the immediate and unconditional surrender of all Korthak military forces, followed by reparations for the attempted genocide of the human species. Or you can watch as we systematically dismantle your entire civilization using technologies you cannot comprehend or resist." Gorthon's hands shook as he reached for the communications panel. Around him, his bridge crew stared at the tactical displays, showing impossible human capabilities. Ships that could phase through matter, manipulate spacetime, and generate energy levels that exceeded small stars. I surrender," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The Korthak Empire surrenders unconditionally." The news spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace communications. Emergency sessions convened in every major capital as governments tried to understand what had just happened. The humans, the primitive species everyone had dismissed as useful but unimportant, had just destroyed the most powerful fleet in galactic history without taking a single casualty. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vextar of the Valorian Republic called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The elegant leader who had dismissed human claims so casually weeks earlier now faced the reality that humanity commanded technologies beyond galactic comprehension. Science Consul Zethmora of the Nethkari Confederacy had spent days analyzing sensor records from the battle. Her cybernetic enhancements allowed her to process data faster than most organic beings, but the human technology defied all analysis. They had weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. The emergency session was unlike anything in Council history. Representatives who had laughed at human claims now sat in stunned silence as they watched recordings of the battle. Ships the size of small moons moving through space like living things, weapons that folded reality itself, defenses that made the vessels untouchable by any known technology. Admiral Chang Ho entered the council chamber with Fleet Admiral Hyun Woo at his side. The human delegation was no longer seated in the lowest tier. They had been moved to a position of honor reserved for major galactic powers. The message was clear. Humanity had reclaimed its place among the stars. "Honored council members," Chang Ho began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "The human species wishes to announce the restoration of the First Human Empire and our return to galactic affairs after 50,000 years of voluntary exile." Chancellor Vextar stood, his forearms trembling slightly. The arrogant confidence he had displayed weeks earlier was gone, replaced by barely controlled fear. "On behalf of the Valorian Republic, I offer our sincere apologies for any misunderstandings regarding humanity's true capabilities. We request immediate diplomatic discussions to establish proper relations with the restored human empire. Yanisan, Consul Zethmora activated her neural implants, transmitting offers directly to the human delegation, the Nethkari Confederacy. 2 months after the Heritage Protocol was activated, Admiral Chang Ho approved the most dangerous mission in human history. 3 ancient installations had been chosen for reactivation. They were picked because they were far from other civilizations and contained the most important resources. If the AI General Wang Gyun had been telling the truth, these sites could change the balance of power in the galaxy overnight. Captain Hyunwoo led the expedition with a small fleet of modified ships toward the first coordinates. His crew had been expanded to include specialists from across the human space fleet. Navigator Sojin worked alongside Tactical Officer Jaemin, while Science Officer Ha Young helped Dongmin with the advanced technology they hoped to find. The first installation was hidden inside what looked like a normal asteroid field in an empty star system. According to the ancient records, it contained automated shipyards that could build vessels, using technologies that current galactic civilization couldn't understand. I'm reading massive energy signatures from inside the asteroid cluster, Ha Young reported from her science station. But from the outside it looks like normal space debris. Dongmin studied the activation codes General Wang Gyun had provided. The camouflage systems are still working after 50,000 years. We need to transmit the proper authentication sequence to get inside. When Hyunwoo transmitted the ancient codes, space itself seemed to ripple around them. What had appeared to be random asteroids suddenly revealed themselves as artificial constructions. Massive structures had been hidden by technology that bent light and sensor beams around them. By the stars, Jaemin whispered, staring at the tactical displays. This facility is the size of a small moon. How did our ancestors build something like this? The shipyard's central AI activated as their ship approached, recognizing the genetic markers of the humans aboard. Ancient docking systems guided them to a bay designed for vessels much larger than anything in the current human fleet. Inside the facility, they found manufacturing systems that operated on principles their best engineers couldn't understand. The AI explained that these shipyards could create vessels from pure energy, building hulls atom by atom using controlled fusion processes. A single facility could produce a fleet of starships in a matter of days. The second installation was hidden beneath the surface of a dead world in the Outer Rim territories. Dr. Yoonji led the team that explored the massive underground complex, finding libraries that contained 50,000 years of human knowledge. Scientific principles that made current galactic technology look primitive were stored in quantum crystalline matrices that could hold more information than entire planetary computer networks. This is incredible, Dr. Yoonji said, accessing databases that covered everything from medicine to physics to military strategy. The scientific advances here could solve every major problem facing human civilization. Energy production, space travel, even extending human lifespan to match the longer-lived alien species. But it was the third installation that changed everything. Hidden in the gravity well of a neutron star, protected by spatial distortions that made it impossible to detect, they found something that shouldn't have existed, a fleet of 12 massive warships, each one the size of a small moon. As Hyunwoo's shuttle approached the flagship, Eternal Phoenix, the ancient vessel's systems detected his presence. For the first time in 50,000 years, lights began appearing along the ship's hull. Docking bays opened that were designed specifically for human vessels. "Captain, I'm reading power levels that don't make sense," Dongmin said, his voice filled with awe. "This single ship generates more energy than our entire home fleet combined." The ship's AI activated as soon as Hyunwoo stepped aboard. Unlike General Won Gyun's holographic form, this intelligence had been designed for military command. Admiral Shin appeared as a stern-faced Korean naval officer from humanity's ancient past. "Welcome aboard, Fleet Admiral," Admiral Shin said, using a rank that hadn't existed for 50,000 years. "I am pleased to finally have a human commander again." "I'm just a captain," Hyunwoo said, overwhelmed by the massive bridge around him. "Your genetic patterns and neural activity indicate command capability matching the original fleet requirements. You are now Fleet Admiral of the Lost Dynasty, heir to the most powerful military force ever created by human hands." Sojin stared at the tactical displays showing the capabilities of the ancient fleet. The numbers were staggering. Each ship could travel faster than anything in the current galaxy, phase through solid matter to avoid enemy weapons, and generate enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. "How is this possible?" she asked. "What kind of technology can do these things?" Admiral Shin began explaining systems that operated on scientific principles unknown to current galactic civilization. Gravity manipulation allowed the ships to fold space around them, effectively making them immune to most weapons. Energy shields could be extended to protect entire planets. The main weapons could destabilize stars, turning them into supernovas that would sterilize whole sectors of space. "Your ancestors built these vessels during the final years of the Civil War," Admiral Shin explained. "They represent the pinnacle of human engineering, designed to end conflicts quickly and decisively. Each ship contains enough firepower to defeat the combined fleets of all current galactic powers." Jamin studied the tactical systems, his mind reeling from the implications. With ships like these, humanity could conquer the entire galaxy in a matter of months. "Which is precisely why your ancestors chose exile," Admiral Shin said firmly. "Power without wisdom leads only to tyranny and destruction. These vessels were hidden because humans had learned that some capabilities are too dangerous to use. But even as they explored the ancient fleet, events in the galaxy were moving beyond their control. The Korthak Empire, emboldened by their easy dismissal of human claims in the Galactic Council, had decided to solve the human problem permanently. War Marshal Gorthon had convinced his government that humanity's presence in space was becoming inconvenient. Human mining operations were competing with Korthak interests, and human diplomatic efforts were complicating Korthak expansion plans. Better to eliminate the humans now while they were still weak, than deal with potential problems later. The Korthak invasion fleet was massive by any galactic standard. 50,000 warships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts and battle carriers. It was more firepower than had ever been assembled for a single military operation in galactic history. Gorthon's plan was simple and brutal. The Korthak fleet would attack every major human world at the same time, overwhelming their defenses before any help could arrive. Within days, humanity would be extinct, and their worlds would be available for Korthak colonization. The invasion force moved toward human space with confidence. Their intelligence indicated that humanity's entire defense fleet consisted of fewer than 200 converted cargo haulers with basic weapons. Even if every human ship fought to the death, the battle would be over in hours. What War Marshal Gorthon didn't know was that his communications were being monitored by the Eternal Phoenix. Admiral Shin detected the approaching fleet while Hyunwoo was still learning to use the ancient ship's systems. "Fleet Admiral, we have a problem," Admiral Shin announced. "A large enemy force is approaching human space with obvious hostile intent. Estimated time to contact with Earth, 6 hours. Hyunwoo felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. In his hands lay the power to save humanity, or to begin a new galactic war that could destroy everything. The ancient fleet could stop the Korthak invasion easily, but using weapons of such devastating power would announce to the galaxy that humans had returned as a major military force. "How many of our ships are ready for combat?" he asked. "All 12 vessels are fully operational and crewed by automated systems that respond to human command. We can deploy immediately." So Jin looked at the tactical projections. 50,000 enemy ships against 12 of ours. Even with superior technology, those are terrible odds. Admiral Shin's expression was grim. "Fleet Admiral, you misunderstand the capabilities of this fleet. We are not outnumbered. They are. The ancient fleet prepared for its first combat in 50,000 years. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's exile was ending, and the children of Earth were ready to reclaim their place among the stars. But first, they had to survive the next 6 hours. The test that General Won-gyun had spoken of was about to begin in the most dramatic way possible. Back on Earth, Dongmin sat in the most secure research building humanity had. The underground complex was built deep beneath the Korean mountains and housed humanity's most secret military projects. Only a few people knew about the data he had hidden from the Galactic Council, and even fewer understood how important it might be. Dr. Yoon-ji was the head of the Terran Defense Research Division. She looked very tired because she had been working for 3 days straight, trying to decode the ancient files. Her team of language experts, engineers, and computer specialists had made very little progress with the alien symbols and corrupted data. The translation software can only handle small pieces, she said, rubbing her tired eyes. Most of the files are in languages that don't exist in any database. But the parts we can read are impossible to believe. Admiral Chang Ho was the commander of the Terran Defense Fleet. He studied the partial translations spread across the conference table. At 55 years old, he had spent his entire adult life building humanity's space defenses from almost nothing. The numbers in these files made no sense to him. Ships the size of moons, weapons that can move stars. This has to be science fiction or old myths. No civilization could have this kind of power. Dongmin shook his head. Admiral, I've looked at the technical specifications. The math works. The physics are correct, just incredibly advanced. This isn't fantasy, it's engineering documentation. Dr. Yunji activated a new display showing genetic analysis data. There's something else. The ship's computer system seemed designed to respond to specific biological markers. DNA patterns, brainwave frequencies, even genetic expressions that are uniquely human. Taeho was one of her best engineers. He looked up from his workstation. It's like the technology recognizes us. Every time we try to access deeper files, the system asks for biological verification. It wants to make sure we're human before it shares information. Mi-young was a linguist who had been working on the language patterns for days without rest. She was young but brilliant, with a gift for seeing connections others missed. The Korean characters aren't random. They're part of a structured language system. Ancient Korean mixed with something else, something that evolved over thousands of years. Show us, Admiral Chang Ho said. Mi-young activated her translation system. Look at this sequence. It's clearly a command protocol, but it's asking for genetic authentication. The system wants to verify that the user is descended from a specific human population group. Dr. Yunji frowned. Which population group? Based on the genetic markers it's looking for in us. People of Korean descent, but not just modern Koreans. It's looking for genetic patterns that go back tens of thousands of years, to populations that existed before recorded history. Dongmin felt a chill run down his spine. What happens if we provide the genetic authentication it's asking for? Only one way to find out, Dr. Yunji said. She prepared a genetic scanner and nodded to Mi-young. You're the language expert. If this system activates, you'll be the one it talks to. Mi-young placed her hand on the scanner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the room lit up with activity. Data flowed across displays faster than human eyes could follow. And deep within the facility's computers, something ancient woke up. A holographic figure appeared in the center of the room. It looked like a Korean man in his 50s, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform from no historical period any of them recognized. The figure looked around the room with intelligent eyes before focusing on Mi-young. Greetings, children of Earth, the figure said in perfect modern Korean. I am General Won-gyun, last keeper of the Heritage Protocol. I have waited 50,000 years for your species to mature enough to receive this information. Everyone in the room stared in shock. Admiral Chang Ho was the first to recover his voice. What are you? Some kind of artificial intelligence? I am a memory stored in quantum crystalline matrices, preserved by technologies your current science cannot understand. I contain the final records of the first human empire, the civilization that ruled half this galaxy before choosing exile over destruction. Dr. Yunji leaned forward. You're saying humans once had an interstellar empire? General Won-gyun nodded sadly. Earth was the center of a civilization that spanned 200 star systems. We had technologies that allowed us to reshape worlds, manipulate space and time, and build weapons capable of extinguishing stars. We were the shepherds of the galaxy, protecting younger species and maintaining peace among the stars. What happened? Mi-young asked softly. Civil war. A faction of our people believed we should rule the galaxy directly, controlling other species for their own good. Another faction believed we should withdraw completely, allowing natural evolution to proceed without our interference. The war lasted 300 years and nearly destroyed the galaxy itself. The holographic general gestured, and new displays showed star maps of incredible scope. Hundreds of solar systems were marked with human colonies, research stations, and military installations. In the end, both sides realized we had become too dangerous to remain active in galactic affairs. The decision was made to enter voluntary exile. All traces of our civilization were hidden or destroyed. Our surviving populations were relocated to isolated worlds where they could develop naturally. without access to technologies that could threaten the galaxy. Tejo stared at the technical specifications scrolling past. These weapon systems, they're beyond anything we can imagine. Ships that can phase through solid matter, energy shields that protect entire solar systems, gravity manipulators that can crush planets. The exile was meant to last until humanity had learned wisdom to match their capabilities. General Wang Gyun continued. I was programmed to watch for signs that your species had matured enough to handle its true heritage without repeating the mistakes of the past. Admiral Chang Ho felt overwhelmed. And you think we're ready now? Recent events suggest the test is beginning. Other species in the galaxy have grown arrogant and aggressive. They dismiss humanity because they have forgotten their history. The Korthik Empire builds fleets for conquest. The Valorians believe they are natural rulers. The Nethkari pursue technology without wisdom. All the conditions that led to our ancient civil war are developing again. Dr. Yunji realized the implications. You're saying there are more installations like this? More hidden technology? Dozens of sites across the galaxy, all waiting for the proper genetic codes and command sequences. Automated shipyards that can build vessels with technologies far beyond current galactic capabilities. Weapon systems that have slept for 50,000 years. Research stations containing scientific knowledge that could revolutionize civilization. General Wang Gyun's image flickered slightly. But remember, children of Earth, this technology was hidden for good reasons. Your ancestors chose exile because they learned that power without wisdom leads only to destruction. Use what I am about to give you carefully. The AI transmitted location codes, activation sequences, and genetic authentication keys directly to their computer systems. Star charts appeared showing hidden installations scattered across dozens of sectors, all camouflaged or buried where no one would think to look. The galaxy is about to remember why humans were once called the Star Shepherds, General Wang Gyun said. But whether that memory brings hope or fear depends entirely on the choices you make in the coming days. The holographic figure began to fade. I have waited 50,000 years to deliver this message. My function is complete. The future of humanity and the galaxy is now in your hands. As the AI disappeared, the room fell into stunned silence. Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains, but inside the secure facility, a new day was beginning for the human species. They had just learned they were the children of gods, inheritors of technology that could reshape the galaxy. The question was whether they were wise enough to use it without destroying everything their ancestors had worked to protect. 3 weeks later, Captain Hyunwoo stood in the huge meeting room of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime Station. The massive space station was built by aliens and was much more advanced than anything humans could make. Hyunwoo felt very small, in the enormous room that was designed for beings much larger than humans. The council room was built like stairs going up. The most powerful alien species sat at the top levels. At the very top sat Chancellor Vextar of the Valorians. He was tall with silver skin and 4 arms. The Valorians had been traveling in space for over 10,000 years and thought they were the natural leaders of the galaxy. Below them were the Nethkari, led by Science Consul Zeth Mora. The Nethkari were masters of technology. They had machine parts attached to their bodies that made them look more like robots than living beings. They had built most of the advanced systems that kept galactic civilization running. On another level sat War Marshal Gorthon of the Korthak Empire. The Korthak were a warrior species with thick armored skin and huge bodies that made them scary fighters. They controlled the biggest fleet in the galaxy and were not afraid to use it. Humanity sat on one of the lowest levels with only a small group led by Ambassador Yuna. The human section looked tiny compared to the massive alien representatives around them. After only 400 years in space, humans were considered newcomers who had barely earned their seat at the galactic table. Hyunwoo activated the holographic display in the center of the room. Pictures of the strange ship appeared, along with the data they had found. He had spent days getting ready for this presentation, knowing it might be the most important moment in human history. Honored council members, he began. His voice carried across the huge room through the translation system. My crew found this ship 3 weeks ago in the Outer Rim territories. Our analysis shows it is over 50,000 years old, older than all known galactic civilizations. Quiet murmurs of doubt passed through the room. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward slightly. His forearms were folded in a way that the translator said meant he was dismissive. Hyunwoo continued, showing the technical information Dongmin had put together. The technology on this ship is far beyond anything we use today. The power systems alone could change space travel forever. But most importantly, we found evidence that suggests this ship was built by an ancient human civilization. The murmurs turned into open laughter from several sections. War Marshal Gorthan's deep voice boomed across the room. Humans? Building advanced starships 50,000 years ago? This is ridiculous. Your species was still learning to make fire when my ancestors were conquering star systems. Science. Consul Zethmora activated her own display, showing detailed scans of human technology. The evidence is clear. Human engineering is primitive compared to established galactic standards. Your fastest ships barely achieve Class 3 hyperspace speed. Your weapon systems are centuries behind current military technology. The idea that humans once had superior capabilities is scientifically impossible. Yuna stood up from the human section. Her young face was red with anger and frustration. If the council would look at the evidence instead of dismissing it based on prejudice. Prejudice. Chancellor Vextar's voice cut through hers like a blade. Young human, we base our conclusions on 10,000 years of galactic history. Your species arrived in space yesterday by galactic standards. You have contributed nothing significant to galactic civilization. Your worlds produce raw materials and basic manufactured goods. You are useful, but hardly advanced. The Galactic Council's chief scientist, Yarin, activated his own presentation. The thin, gray-skinned researcher had studied dozens of species throughout the galaxy. The human species shows no signs of ancient technological advancement. Their genetic patterns show recent evolutionary emergence from primitive conditions. Their archaeological records show continuous development from stone tools to spaceflight with no gaps suggesting lost advanced civilizations. Hyunwoo tried to interrupt, but the language fragments we found could easily be fake, Zethmora said coldly. Human desperation to be considered important in galactic affairs is well documented. Creating false evidence of ancient achievements would fit established psychological patterns. The room filled with alien laughter. Representatives from dozens of species found the human claims amusing. To them, it was like watching children pretend to be adults, making up stories about imaginary achievements. War Marshal Gorthan stood up. His massive body cast a shadow across the human section. I have studied human military capabilities extensively. Your entire defense fleet has fewer than 200 ships. Most of your vessels are converted cargo haulers with basic weapons attached. You have never won a significant military battle against any major galactic power. The concept that your ancestors once had weapons capable of threatening established civilizations is laughable. Chancellor Vextar raised one of his hands for silence. The Council has heard enough. While we appreciate the human delegation's enthusiasm, we cannot waste valuable time on obvious fabrications. The derelict vessel in question will be transferred to Nethkari research facilities for proper scientific analysis. What? Yuna stood again, her voice rising. That ship was found in neutral space by a human crew. You have no right to take it. The Council determines jurisdiction in matters of galactic security, Vextar replied smoothly. Ancient technology of unknown origin poses potential risks. Only species with proper scientific capabilities should handle such materials. The Nethkari will study the vessel and share any actual discoveries with the Council. Zethmora nodded. Her cybernetic implants glowed with satisfaction. We will, of course, provide full reports to the human delegation once we have separated fact from fantasy. I suspect we will find the vessel to be of Nethkari origin, possibly an experimental ship lost during our early expansion period. The vote was quick and overwhelming. Every major species supported transferring the derelict to Nethkari control. Only the human delegation and a few minor species abstained. The message was clear. Humanity's opinions carried little weight in galactic affairs. As the council session ended, representatives from various species approached the human delegation with barely hidden condescension. Several offered sympathy for humanity's unfortunate mistake, in misidentifying the vessel's origins. Others suggested that humans focus on more realistic contributions to galactic society, like mining operations and food production. Chancellor Vextar approached personally. His tall form towered over the human group. Captain Hyunwoo, I hope you understand that the Council's decision is not personal. We simply cannot allow wishful thinking to override scientific facts. Humans have a valuable role to play in galactic civilization, but it is not as ancient leaders or advanced engineers. War Marshal Gorthan laughed as he passed their group. Perhaps you should focus on building better cargo ships before claiming your ancestors built superweapons. Yuna waited until most of the aliens had left, before speaking to Hyunwoo in quiet tones. We still have the data files Dongmin downloaded. They can take the ship, but they don't know what we really found. Hyunwoo nodded, watching the last alien representatives leave the room. Decades of human efforts to gain respect in the galactic community had just been crushed with casual dismissal, but somewhere in those encrypted files was information that might change everything. The challenge would be figuring out what they had really discovered before the rest of the galaxy decided that humanity's usefulness had expired. As they left the council chamber, Hyunwoo could feel the weight of every human in the galaxy resting on his shoulders. The aliens thought they knew what humans were capable of. Soon they might learn how wrong they had been. But first, Hyunwoo and his crew had to survive long enough to uncover the truth hidden in 50,000 years of forgotten history. The real question was whether humanity could handle what they were about to discover about themselves. The answer might shake the foundations of everything they believed about their place in the universe. Captain Hyunwoo stood quietly on the bridge of his ship, the Aegis. The stars looked the same as always through the big window at the front of the bridge. His ship was not very big compared to the huge alien ships that flew around the galaxy, but it was home to him and his crew. The Aegis had 43 people on it. They had been flying through space for 6 months, looking for old broken ships and useful things they could sell. This was called salvage work. It was dangerous but necessary because humans needed money to keep their small fleet of ships running. Captain, I found something strange, said So-Jin from her seat at the navigation controls. She was looking at her screen with worry in her dark eyes. Her fingers moved fast across the buttons as she tried to understand what she was seeing. It's really big and it's not moving at all. Hyunwoo walked over to look at her screen. The thing she found was much bigger than their ship. Maybe 3 times bigger. It was floating in empty space between 2 dead star systems, far away from any normal shipping routes where other ships would fly. Maybe it's an old broken ship, said Dongmin, who was fixing a broken control panel nearby. He was the ship's chief engineer and his hands were dirty with grease. He cleaned them with a cloth before coming over to look. It might have some parts we can take and sell. Yuna turned around in her chair. She was the youngest officer on the ship at 26 years old, but she was very smart about communications and could sense when something was wrong. I'm not getting any signals from it. No distress calls or identification signals. Whatever it is has been quiet for a very long time. Hyunwoo thought about it. Salvage work was how humans made money in space, but it was also dangerous. The big alien species controlled most of the good salvage areas. This left humans to look through the leftover junk and forgotten parts of space that nobody else wanted. Let's go closer, So-Jin, but keep our distance until we know what we're dealing with. The Aegis moved slowly toward the mysterious object. As they got closer, they could see it better on their screens. It was definitely a ship, but it looked nothing like any ship in their computer databases. The outside was very dark and seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it back. The shape was strange with curves and angles that were hard to look at directly. I have never seen anything like this, said Dongmin, studying the readings from his instruments. The hull is made of something my scanners don't recognize. I can't even tell what material it's made from. Yuna was frowning at her communication equipment. I'm getting some very weak power readings from inside. There might still be some working systems in there. Hyunwoo made his decision quickly. Get ready for a boarding mission. Dongmin, So-Jin, you come with me. Yuna, watch our communications and be ready to get us out of there if something goes wrong. They put on their spacesuits and took a small shuttle across the empty space between the 2 ships. The strange ship looked even bigger as they got closer. Its weird hull seemed to move and change in ways that hurt to look at for too long. Dongmin found an airlock that looked like it might work, even though the design was completely different from anything they knew. The airlock is responding to normal docking signals, Dongmin reported through his radio. Whatever built this ship knew the basic rules of space travel safety. They went inside the strange ship very carefully. Their lights cut through the darkness in the corridors. The hallways were wide and tall, built for people about the same size as humans but with different body shapes. Everything was covered with a thin layer of dust that had been floating in zero gravity for many years. "Look at these symbols," Sojin said, pointing her light at marks on the walls. The symbols were carved deep into the strange hull material. They formed patterns that seemed almost familiar, but not quite like anything they recognized. They walked toward what looked like the bridge of the ship. Emergency lights turned on as they got closer, giving off dim red light that barely lit up the huge space. The bridge was enormous, with many control stations arranged in a complex pattern around a central command area. Dongmin connected his portable power unit to what looked like a main control panel. Slowly, more systems began to turn on. Screens started showing displays with the same unknown symbols they had seen in the corridors. "This is amazing," he said, his voice full of wonder. "The power systems still work after all this time. The engineering is better than anything I've ever seen." Sojin was studying the navigation displays while her translation device tried to figure out the symbols. "Hyunwoo, you need to see this. The star charts show star systems that don't exist anymore. Some of these stars burned out thousands of years ago." Yuna's voice came through their radios from the Aegis. "Captain, I'm detecting big energy spikes from where you are. Something major just activated." A new screen lit up in front of them, showing what looked like a ship's log. The symbols scrolled past too fast to read, but the translation device was picking up small pieces. Most of it was corrupted or in languages the device couldn't handle, but sometimes clear words appeared. Hyunwoo felt his blood turn cold as he read the translated pieces. Words like Korea, Earth, and human appeared mixed in with the alien text. Even more shocking, some of the symbols were clearly ancient Korean writing, mixed together with the unknown language. "This can't be right," he said, staring at the screen. "The translator must be broken." Dongmin shook his head. His own device was showing the same things. "No, Captain. I'm seeing the same thing. This ship has some connection to humans somehow." Sojin had found what looked like a data storage system. When she activated it, more screens came online, showing star maps, technical diagrams, and what looked like historical records. The age of the files was incredible. Some were over 50,000 years old. "Captain," Yuna's voice came through the radios again, sounding urgent. "You need to get back here now. I'm picking up sensor sweeps from multiple ships coming toward us. They're not telling us who they are, but their energy signatures are huge." Hyunwoo made a quick decision. "Dongmin, can you copy these files?" "Already working on it," the engineer replied, connecting his data storage devices to the alien systems. "This technology is incredible. It's like it wants to share information with us. The download speed is faster than anything I've ever seen." In just a few minutes, they had copied huge amounts of data from the ancient ship's computers. As they got ready to leave, Sojin noticed something else. A small section of the bridge had what looked like personal quarters attached to it. Inside, they found objects that were definitely made for humans to use. "We need to go now," Yuna urged over the radios. "Those ships are getting closer and they're enormous." They returned to the Aegis quickly, their minds confused by what they had discovered. As their ship moved away from the strange derelict, massive alien vessels appeared on their sensors. The newcomers surrounded the ancient ship with military precision. "Identify yourselves," came a harsh voice over the communication channel. The translator said it was speaking in the Korthak military language. "This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Terran vessel Aegis. We're doing routine salvage work in unclaimed space." There was a long pause before the answer came. "Human vessel, you will give us any materials taken from the derelict. This area is now under Galactic Council control." Hyunwoo looked at his crew. Dongmin quietly showed that the data downloads were safely hidden in encrypted storage. Sojin had already planned a route back to human space, and Yuna was watching the alien communications for any signs they might attack. "Understood. We found nothing of value and are leaving the area." The Korthak ships let them go. They seemed more interested in the derelict ship than in one small human salvage vessel. As the Aegis jumped to hyperspace, Hyunwoo stared at the data files they had recovered. Somewhere in those ancient records was information that could change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. But first, They had to get home and figure out what they had really found in that impossible ship. The answers might be more shocking than any of them could imagine.